Welcome to the HR Empowerment Podcast, where we will uncover strategies and new insights from HR professionals who discuss up-to-date regulations, best practices, and the most pressing topics like diversity and equity, leadership, dealing with difficult situations, and much more that affect your bottom line and business. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, everybody. Wendy Sellers here, the HR lady. Welcome back to episode 2 of our 5-part series. We're here talking about the silent struggle of employees who are in the sandwich generation or just have some kind of caregiving responsibility at all. And it is just, our first series, the numbers, how many hours it takes to take care of our aging parents, and on top of that, our children, and so many unique homes in our society right now. I want to hand this over to our professional here who actually knows a lot about the sandwich generation, Christy Yates. Welcome back, Christy.
Hi, thank you. Thank you very much.
Hey, so we want to, kind of help our employers and our HR folks build a supportive culture for caregivers. And so I know you've authored a white paper. Where do we start? If we're brand new in HR and we're like, okay, now people are coming to us and saying, I need help. Where do they even start?
Yeah, that's a great question. The one thing I'll put out there is many family caregivers might not identify as caregivers, right? There may be reasons why they don't want to say, I'm a caregiver. They may fear that they're going to be monitored differently than every time they take a phone call, that there's an issue. If they take a paid time off day, ooh, that was one too many, or, oh, you're getting close. So there's a lot of reasons. So I think the first thing is for companies to kind of look at what kind of environment are you providing for employees to be able to be honest and say, this is where I am, right? For managers to understand that. It's really the management level. And then, because this is, I think, we think, oh, HR is going to do this, but it's really the manager level, right? Because it's direct and we're looking at that. But there are definitely some things that can be helpful. So this white paper that I participated in, we did a focus group with a lot of HR folks, and we talked about that and trying to understand how do they ascertain who are caregivers, and just asking that question might be one thing. Maybe even doing some internal focus groups with folks. But they can be simple fixes like employee support groups, employee resource groups, or affinity groups. I often come into those and do an hour presentation once a month or talk about what's going on. I tell a little bit about sandwich generation and then maybe offer some suggestions. But it could be something really simple like having a kiosk in a break room or some area, even information added to a web page about local resources people could find. And every community has some resources, but caregivers might not know where to look for those. So being able to just simply provide some information and some direction for folks that they can take away without ever having to disclose, hey, this is what's going on for me. So there could be some simple fixes like that. I think there are some other kinds of things. There were some studies we looked at out of Canada, and that was one of the ones that came up the most, is just really some information, because people don't always know where to go for that.
Right.
So
yeah,
those are some things.
And what about also like mental health counseling and employee assistance programs?
Absolutely. It could be providing up to some coaching. There are a lot of caregiver coaches out there. There are a lot of geriatric case managers. You could provide some support for or financial remuneration for that. There could be, other kinds of ways to take some time away. It could be leaning into the hybrid model when it's appropriate. I mean, there are some jobs that simply can't be hybrid, right? Like you can't be a hybrid bus driver, right? You can't phone that one in. But there are a lot of jobs where you might be able to do that. And how can you lean into that? But there's a number of solutions like that, Wendy. I think that's brilliant too, is providing some support, mental health coaching and mental health counseling, some therapists, things like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's somebody who can just even help, like, hey, you've never taken care of somebody with XYZ condition before. Here is Here's a
Yes.
guide, here's some backwards planning, here's some assistance, here's a hotline. I just did a quick search myself, and I'm sure you've heard of these tools that I have not, because I'm not in a caregiver situation at the moment. But there's like caregiveraction.org. There's also elderhelpers.org, and another one that I found, it's from the Find a Helpline, which it actually brought me to Caregiver Action, but all these other unique things where, a crisis text line where maybe you're not the one that's in a crisis, but somebody else in your family is, but you need the help right now to help them.
Yes.
And so, it's interesting also to me before that you said that you found information from other countries. Like, come on, USA, we need to step it up a little bit here, but I don't think we have all day to talk about that.
Yeah, that's another podcast, but yes, and it's true. But and there's plenty of stuff that's online. I would add to that Whole Care Network. This is who produced this white paper. There's a lot of courses on there people can take. It could be finding a way to provide that for folks. It could be caregiving.com also offers, every state has a representative from caregiving.com who can provide some resources. And I do feel like the local, as much local that you can find is really great. So you mentioned a couple, and there are gazillion local level elder care management type organizations that can provide some help. So partnering with those, I think it's helping people to become aware of that, because when you're stressed out, especially when you leave work and you're stressed out because you're going home to more stress, it's sometimes hard to wrap your head around, how do I find what I need? So being able to find that for folks and make it available in a way that they can pull it when they need it would be really brilliant. And that's kind of the thing that we heard from a lot of folks. Yeah.
JC, you have some stats you want to share?
73% of employees have some form of caregiving responsibility, but only 56% of caregivers say their supervisor is aware of it. 76% of supervisors are aware of caregivers earning more per hour compared to 49% of caregivers earning less per hour. Back to you.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of already said that a little bit too, Christy, where some people will be open and say, hey, we have responsibilities. I need help. So in our next episode, episode 3 of 5, I want to talk a little bit more about benefits and maybe some programs that we can help our listeners so that they could find them, do the research, and then go ahead and implement them in their organization. So we'll be back shortly to talk about building a supportive culture for caregivers. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for joining the HR Empowerment Podcast, brought to you by Aurora Training Advantage. We hope you've gained new insight and strategies to navigate the HR profession. We look forward to you joining us again on the HR Empowerment Podcast.